No matter where you are in the state of New York, as long as you had internet access, you could place a sports bet online legally for the first time today. Online sports gambling is now legal, allowing the state to cash in on a multi-billion-dollar industry. Gambling addiction organizations tell us this could come at a greater cost for some. Our Samantha Croston has more tonight.
Online sports betting is here in New York. Patrick Bailey, the director of communications at the Business Council of New York, says for years, New York had lost out to other states that have already legalized online sports betting.
20% of New Jersey's mobile sports betting revenues came from New York State residents. And it's as simple as the fact of people that living in New York City, driving over the bridge on the weekends and betting football and other sports.
A gaming company hired by the state projected that New York can now see between $800 million and just over $1 billion annually in sports mobile betting revenue. 51% of that goes directly to the state.
If it is $500 million, now that's $500 extra million that the state has to use on programs that they deem necessary.
Starting today, you can play sports bets from virtually anywhere as long as you have Wi-Fi and a cell phone. But gambling addiction organizations see this as a big problem.
They can do it in their bedroom. They can do it in the closet. They can do it any place they want, 24/7. The availability and opportunity is very alarming, very concerning for us. Talk about a hidden addiction. We won't ever know now if people are gambling or not gambling.
Jim Maney is executive director of the New York Council on Problem Gambling, a group he is specifically fearful for, the younger generation, who grew up with a cell phone in their hands.
The younger folks know this platform completely. And you think about it, gambling is just now coming onto their platforms. They were brought up playing on their devices, right? And now suddenly it's going to be there 24/7. We're very concerned.
And tonight we are getting our first look at the federal medical team brought in to help Upstate Hospital's staffing crisis.
Right now, 31 members of the National Disaster Medical System are working at the hospital, sent in by Governor Hochul. Our Mary Keeler looks at whether it's working out and helping.
This photo shows part of the federal National Disaster Medical Team mixed in with Upstate Hospital Emergency Department staff. They've been called in to work for 2 weeks here, jumping in to help staff keep up.
Anywhere from runny noses to trauma and everything in between.
Timothy Tackett is a team commander who says the transition to Upstate's ER has been smooth, and he says they're working 12-hour shifts at a time and they're making progress.
Decreasing the wait times in the ER, decreasing the handoff from EMS to the ER. And when that happens, you have a backlog of EMS. Sometimes it takes hours for the EMS to transition their patients to the ER because of the call volume.
So if you come to an emergency room right now, as opposed to, say, 2 years ago, less staff to keep beds open, you need to be admitted to the hospital. We have less beds to put you in. What winds up happening is you wind up staying in the emergency department a lot longer.
As of Friday morning, Upstate says their ER wait time is 110 minutes, their community hospital ER 96 minutes, and the pediatric emergency room is 107 minutes. Upstate says they're dealing with significantly less staff than they started with in the beginning of the pandemic, so this help is critical.
We really care about offloading because that matters for the community. And if we're not able to get you off of a stretcher, we're holding somebody there that then can't respond. Since they've been here, we've cut that time in half.
The team is set to work with Upstate staff until the 14th. At that point, staff hope that the progress they make will be sustainable.
Joining us this morning is Sergeant Matthew Malinowski from the Syracuse Police Department. Good morning, Sergeant Malinowski.
Good morning. Happy to be here as always.
Thank you so much. We've had a very rough start to the new year. During the first week of the new year, there was a lot of violence happening between Syracuse and Rochester, and both of these incidents involved children. And I want you to listen to some of that reaction this morning.
I got to get out of here because I'm nervous for me and my children. I'm scared for my life, to be honest.
It's disturbing to see a 10-year-old victim, and certainly nothing that a 10-year-old would do would justify someone doing something stupid like this. And I think that there are certainly times in our community when the community needs to hear directly from the chief. This is something that we certainly don't want in the city of Syracuse, and we certainly need to do everything we can to attempt to eliminate this kind of behavior, but we certainly can't do it without the public's help.
A 14-year-old child was shot and killed, not at night, but during the day.
I don't think he was a troublemaker or anything like that, the way I used to see him here.
Well, it's definitely disturbing, and I feel that, you know, what we've done to our children and this violence that we've allowed to occur in our community, it's definitely upsetting to see. We can talk about that most recent case and why we should all care about violent crime is it can affect anyone. The 10-year-old that was shot was in her house, and a bullet had traveled through and struck her. So this is not something that just impacts gang members or anything like that. This is where violence might occur in the city, especially involving guns. Any of us could be the target of that. So that's why, again, it's going to be for all of us to care about. We did release the end of the year crime data. So even though we did have a 9% reduction in overall crime, we did see an increase in the violent crime by 2%, which is obviously still a concern for us and something as a police department we're going to do everything we can to try to bring that number down.
There has been an increase in violent crime. So as we're seeing these unfortunate events that happened, what can the public do to assist Syracuse police or police in general when it comes to tackling this type of crime?
One of our biggest allies are the people who live in Syracuse. And when I say that, it's the people that witness these events taking place, making sure that you're getting that information to the police department. I can't say it enough. The amount of crimes that have been solved by a good witness getting us that information. So as small as it is, let us determine its importance, but getting that to us is important. Now, we do understand that there's a fear of retaliation, and it does feel real to people. We've made avenues for people to report crimes anonymously. We have an app, Syracuse PD. You can download the app instead of true anonymous tips that we can't even look up your information if we wanted to. So even in those cases where you want to remain anonymous, it's fine. We just prefer to get the information. But like I always like to do, I think police, we always get asked, what are we doing? If you look at our efforts in 2020, you could say that we took around 60,000 calls and made around or over 15,000 arrests. So we are trying to do our part, but I do think if we're being frank here, we tend to see that other parts of the criminal justice system maybe aren't performing as well either, because we tend to see the same individuals committing the violent crime continuing to be let out on our streets. So it's not something that the police can do alone. It's something that the whole criminal justice system as a whole is going to have to tackle if we're going to make a real impact.
Now it's time for your tip of the week, and this is something that I can definitely say is my worst fear. What to do when you're stranded on a highway. It happened on Interstate 95 in Virginia, and it was a pretty scary scene out there.
Yeah, so this is a great topic. I think that here in Syracuse, we're a little spoiled. We have probably some of the best DPW workers in the country or world even. So we get spoiled with having our roads cleared, but it could happen. I think one of the biggest things, like we always talk about, is being prepared. So really your trunk or somewhere in your vehicle, definitely have like some really big warm clothes that you can survive for several hours if you have to. Another thing would be to pack like a to-go box of whether it be at least water and some sort of food, because you do really never know that these things could happen, but you really have to take it upon yourself if you want to be prepared. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're stranded in a vehicle, and especially if you run out of gas, heat's going to be a problem for you. But on this point, too, if you're ever on a highway and you're involved in an accident and you find yourself stuck in the middle of the road, you're going to want to take some precautions on that and really try to make sure you're getting off to the side of the road if possible, because other vehicles may not be able to see you. So you don't want to be part of the pileup. If your vehicle can move, moving it over would be suggested.
Thank you so much, Sergeant Matthew Malinowski, for joining us this morning. We appreciate you as always.